Christmas morning should have smelled like magic. Cinnamon rolls in the oven, wrapping paper rustling, the crackle of the fireplace mixing with my mother's holiday playlist. It should have been warmth, joy and love. But for me, it was the sound of my parents laughing at my sister's excitement as she tore open another box that wasn't even from Santa, but from them. I sat cross-legged on the carpet, waiting for my turn like I always did. My sister, Emily, was perched in the center of attention, her perfect manicure flashing in the twinkling Christmas tree lights, as she carefully lifted the lid of a glossy white box. My mother's face was glowing, her phone recording every second. My dad leaned forward, grinning, as though this was the grand finale of the holiday show. "Oh my God!" Emily gasped, her voice a mix of disbelief and triumph. "Is this? No way!" She pulled it out like it was the holy grail, a Gucci Jackie 1961 shoulder bag, retail price $300. The room erupted in applause, as though she had just won an Olympic gold medal. My mother squealed, "Do you love it, sweetheart? We wanted to get you something special this year. You deserve it." Emily pressed the leather against her cheek, like it was a newborn baby. "I can't believe this." "Oh my God, Mom, Dad. Thank you. You're the best." She sprang up to hug them, the bag dangling from her arm like a trophy. I forced a smile, though my stomach twisted into knots. The smell of leather reached me from where I sat. But it carried the sour taste of something I knew too well. Favoritism wrapped in expensive paper. My mother turned to me then, her excitement dimming to something obligatory. She reached behind the couch and handed me a small red envelope. "Merry Christmas, honey," she said, almost distracted, still watching Emily twirl around with her new luxury bag. I opened it. Inside was a thin card with a snowman on the front. Inside, in my father's rushed handwriting, it read, "Merry Christmas, love you, Mom and Dad." A $2 card. I blinked at it. For a moment. I thought maybe there was something else tucked inside. Money, a gift card, something. But no. Just cheap cardstock and a sentence. "That's nice." I managed, my throat tight. Emily, still laughing, caught sight of me holding my card. "Oh, that's cute," she said with a smirk. "Cards are so sentimental." Her voice dripped with mock sympathy before she went back to admiring her reflection in the bag's gold hardware. No one else noticed the way my hands trembled as I held that card. No one noticed how my eyes burned. For years, I had swallowed the little differences. Emily got the newest phone, I got the old hand. Me down. Emily got a cake shaped like a castle for her birthday. I got a box of cupcakes from the grocery store. Emily's report cards were hung on the fridge. Mine were stacked in a drawer. But this was more than just a difference. This was a declaration, a $300 bag versus a $2 card. A golden child versus the shadow sibling. I sat there on the carpet, surrounded by ripped wrapping paper and glittering lights, feeling smaller than I ever had in my life. My chest was heavy, my smile fake, my soul cracking in silence. That was the moment something inside me shifted. I didn't know it yet. But this Christmas was going to be the last one where I stayed quiet. People say Christmas is only one day, just 24 hours of lights, music, and gifts. But the truth is, moments like that don't stay trapped inside a calendar. They echo. That Gucci bag and my flimsy card weren't just about one morning. They were the echo of years of shadows that I had lived in. As I sat there clutching the cheap card, memories began weaving through me like ghosts, each one stinging sharper than the last. The birthday parties I remembered being 7, staring at Emily's birthday cake. It was shaped like a castle, with frosted towers and little edible princess figurines. She wore a tiara, and 30 kids crowded our backyard, squealing as my parents handed out goodie bags stuffed with toys. When my birthday came 3 months later, we didn't have a party. My mother claimed it was too expensive to do big parties twice. Instead, I got a sheet cake from the grocery store with, "Happy Birthday," scrawled in thin, uneven icing. Just me, my parents, and Emily singing half-heartedly before she got bored and left the table. Even then, I told myself it didn't matter. I was easy to please, right? That's what my mom always said. The report cards in middle school. I worked harder than I'd ever worked before. I brought home straight A's one semester, a perfect record I had stayed up countless nights for. When I proudly showed my dad, he gave me a distracted, "Good job," without even looking up from his laptop. But when Emily brought home a report card with B's and a single A, the fridge became her personal gallery. My mom stuck it on with glittery magnets and posted a photo online. "So proud of our Emily. Such a bright future ahead." My grades. They stayed in a drawer forgotten. The quiet talent I was good at drawing. Really good, actually. My notebooks were filled with sketches of faces, landscapes, and designs that I would spend hours perfecting. My art teacher once pulled my parents aside during a conference and said, "Your child has real talent. You should encourage this." But encouragement never came. My mom waved it off. Drawing's just a hobby. Emily's into real things. Sports. Social activities. You should join her instead of hiding with pencils all day. So I did what I always did. I swallowed my pride. I kept drawing in secret, because it was the only place I felt seen. Even if only by myself. The silent comparisons holidays were the worst. I'd watch Emily open box after box. Designer clothes, the latest phone, expensive perfumes. My pile was always smaller, cheaper, practical. Socks. A paperback book I never asked for. Sometimes a scarf, and always my parents' faces lit up only for her. I wasn't unloved, exactly. They said the words, "We love you," in the same way someone says, "Good morning," casual, automatic, empty. But love without fairness, without effort, without recognition. It feels less like love and more like a leash. That Christmas with the Gucci bag wasn't new. It was the crescendo of a song I'd been forced to listen to all my life. A song where Emily's voice was amplified, and mine was barely a whisper. As I sat there on the floor, watching my sister cradle her $1,000 prize while I stared at a $2 card, I realized something bitter. I had grown up thinking maybe one day I'd earn their attention. That if I worked harder, stayed kinder, became better, they'd finally look at me with the same pride they reserved for Emily. But now I saw the truth. It was never about what I did. It was about who I was, and who I wasn't. And in that realization, pain transformed into something else. Something sharper. Because shadows don't stay silent forever. The rest of that Christmas day felt like I was walking through glass on bare feet. Every laugh at Emily's jokes cut me a little deeper. Every admiring glance at her Gucci bag was another reminder of where I stood in my own family. Dinner should have been comforting. Roast turkey, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce. But the warmth of the food couldn't hide the frost in my chest. I sat at the table, listening as my parents asked Emily about her plans for the new year. "So, honey, have you thought more about that internship at your uncle's company?" My dad asked, carving another slice of turkey for her. "Oh, totally," Emily said, flipping her hair back like she was on a talk show. "I mean, it'll look amazing on my resume. Plus, the bag you got me. Perfect for interviews." My mother beamed. "Yes, presentation matters, darling. First impressions are everything." I nearly choked on my water. First impressions. Presentation. They had just bought her a 300 first impression, while I was sitting there invisible, clutching the memory of a $2 card. No one asked me about my year. No one asked me about my job, or my life, or my art. It was as though my presence at the table was an afterthought. And then Emily smirked, stabbing at her mashed potatoes. "Don't worry," she said, glancing at me. "Maybe next year you'll get something nicer too." The table erupted in polite laughter. My parents didn't correct her. They didn't defend me. They didn't even look my way. That was it. The moment. The crack. I set down my fork, my hand trembling slightly. My voice, when it came, was soft but steady. "Do you even hear yourselves?" The laughter stopped. 4 eyes turned to me, surprised, almost offended that I had dared to interrupt their show. "What do you mean?" my dad asked, frowning. I let out a shaky breath, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. "I mean this. All of this. The bag, the attention. The way you've spent the whole day celebrating Emily, while I sit here with a card that costs less than a cup of coffee. My mother stiffened. Now, don't be dramatic. You know we love you just as much. No, you don't. The words came out before I could stop them, but once they were out, I couldn't hold anything back. You never have. Not once. Every Christmas, every birthday, every report card. You've made it crystal clear who matters more in this family. And it's not me. The silence was suffocating. My father's fork clinked against his plate. My mother's face flushed red, her lips pressed into a thin line. Emily leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, wearing that smug smile she always wore when I got too sensitive. You're overreacting. My dad finally said, his voice low and stern. It's just a bag. I laughed, bitter and hollow. It's never just a bag. It's never just a cake or a grade or a gift. It's years. Years of being second place in my own family. Do you have any idea how that feels? To sit here over and over, invisible while you pour everything into her. My voice cracked then, raw and unpolished. Do you know what it's like to wonder if your parents actually see you? To wonder if you'll ever be enough for them. The silence grew heavier. No one spoke. Not even Emily, who for once didn't have a snide remark. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping against the hardwood. My hands shook. But I stood tall. I can't keep pretending this doesn't hurt. I can't keep sitting here, watching you choose her over me again and again. I won't. For the first time ever, their eyes were on me. Not out of pride, not out of love, but out of shock. Maybe guilt. But it didn't matter. Because for once, I had spoken. And even if they never admitted it, the truth was out. The silence that had caged me all my life had finally broken. I left the table then, walking away from the roast turkey, the Gucci bag, the glittering Christmas tree. Walking away from the image of a family that had never really been whole. Behind me, I could hear the quiet shuffle of forks, the awkward clearing of throats, the tension they didn't know how to cut. But ahead of me, for the first time in my life, there was space to breathe. After that Christmas, something inside me refused to go back to the way it was. I didn't storm out forever. I didn't disown my family, but I stopped waiting. Waiting for recognition. Waiting for equality. Waiting for love to be handed to me like a prize I hadn't earned. For years, I had tried to compete for their attention, believing that if I worked hard enough, they'd finally turn and see me. But now, I realized the most powerful thing I could do wasn't to fight for their scraps. It was to stop asking altogether. The shift at first, it was small. I stopped calling home just to update them about my life. I stopped bending over backward to make them proud. If my dad asked about my week, I gave a polite answer, but I didn't spill my soul, desperate for validation. Instead, I poured my energy into me. I worked late nights at my job, not because I wanted them to clap for me, but because I wanted to prove something to myself. I took online courses, sharpened my skills, and when a promotion came, I grabbed it. Then another, and another. I started saving money. Slowly at first, then faster as my career grew. I furnished my own apartment, not with flashy things to show off, but with pieces that made me feel at home. My art, the one thing they had dismissed as a hobby, started selling online. To strangers. To people who saw value where my parents never had. Every brushstroke was a rebellion. Every paycheck was a victory. Every quiet step forward was revenge. The silence they noticed Emily, meanwhile, was still Emily. She flashed her Gucci bag on social media, posing in restaurants she couldn't afford without my parents' help. She jumped from one relationship to the next, always expecting applause. At first, my parents didn't notice the difference in me. They still called her the star. They still downplayed my achievements. But silence has weight, and mine started pressing down on them. When I stopped volunteering to drive home for every holiday, my absence left a hole at the table. When I stopped sending long birthday messages in the family group chat, they noticed the missing words. When Emily's dramas consumed them, they realized they no longer had me there as the quiet, dependable backup. My withdrawal wasn't loud, but it was powerful. The unraveling life has a funny way of flipping tables when you least expect it. Emily's glittering world began to crack. The boyfriend who had promised her luxury left her for someone else. The internship she flaunted turned out to be unpaid, and she couldn't keep up with her shopping habits. Credit card bills piled up. One night, she even called me, of all people, crying about how unfair life was to her. I listened politely, offered kind but minimal words, then hung up, because I had learned something crucial. It wasn't my job to fix her. Or them. Soon, my parents started calling more often. But this time, not to boast about Emily. They asked me questions they had never asked before. How's work? Are you eating well? Do you think you can help Emily out with some money for a bit? That last one almost made me laugh out loud. Help Emily. The one they had poured everything into while I held a $2,000 card. No, I said simply. I can't do that. And I didn't explain further. The silence after my refusal was deafening. For the first time, they had to sit with the truth. That I had built a life where their approval no longer mattered. And that meant they no longer had power over me. The revenge they never saw coming. The sweetest revenge wasn't buying a Gucci bag of my own. It wasn't flaunting success in their faces or shouting, "I told you so." It was living a life so full, so independent, so genuinely mine, that they couldn't touch it. Every family call, every gathering, they saw it now. The difference in me. The way I carried myself, calm and unbothered. The way I didn't compete for scraps of attention. They had made me invisible once. But now, my silence made them feel invisible. And that was a kind of revenge money could never buy. Years passed, and Christmas came around again. But it wasn't the same as before. This time, I didn't dread the drive home. I didn't carry the weight of hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd see me this year. I had no expectations, and that was freedom. I arrived in a car I bought myself. Not flashy, but paid in full. I carried gifts wrapped with care. Because that's who I am. Thoughtful even when others weren't thoughtful toward me. My coat was warm, my shoes sturdy, my posture steady. Success didn't glitter on me like Emily's Gucci bag, it radiated in quieter ways. When I walked in, the air shifted. My parents noticed it. Emily noticed it. I wasn't the overlooked shadow anymore. I was someone they had to look at. The contrast. Emily was there, of course, but she looked different. Tired. The Gucci bag that had once been her crown jewel sat slouched on a chair, its leather worn, the gold hardware scratched. She had gone through jobs, boyfriends, debt cycles. She had leaned on my parents like a crutch, and their faces showed the strain of it. "Look who's here," my mom said, her smile a little too eager. She hugged me tightly, holding on longer than usual. My dad patted my back with more warmth than I could remember. Even Emily's eyes flickered.